Hi guys, just want to share a quick encouragement with you today. The other day I was feeling very content, having a good day, homeschooling Seth, all was going well. I actually felt like Seth was learning stuff. And then I had a phone conversation with one of my friends, and she was telling me everything that her child had been learning and had learnt during lockdown. And I was like, oh my goodness, Seth hasn't learned half of this. And I went from feeling content and feeling like I was having a good day to all of a sudden feeling like I was having a rubbish day. But actually, none of my circumstances had changed. But I just realised in that moment, I was comparing myself. So I went from feeling joyful to feeling negative because I'd started to compare myself, compare my child to someone else. And in that moment, when I realized I was comparing myself, I just felt God speak to me clearly and just just say to me, be faithful with what I've given you. Run the race that is set before you. And, I was just like, oh, yeah, oh my goodness. Like, no, I don't want to compare myself because I don't want to go from feeling joyful to feeling negative in just a moment. So I just asked God, I was like, God, please just help me with that. I don't want to be comparing myself in that way. And obviously thanking God for showing me that that's what I was doing in that moment. And as I was praying, I was reminded of a preach I listened to ages ago. So I can't remember who it's by, but this guy that was preaching, he was talking about comparison, and he gave this analogy, and he was saying when he was younger, he used to run track, and he would have his lane and the other runners would have their lane. And he said he would be fine as long as he kept his eyes fixed on the finish line. He'd be absolutely fine, he'd do well. But he said as soon as he started looking at the other runners, say he'd look into the left lane, he said he'd drift into the left lane. So he'd go off of running his race and into someone else's race. And, he said at worst, he wouldn't even complete the race. And that just made me realise and made me think about comparison, how harmful it can be, and how much it can affect us when we're comparing ourselves. So yeah, it just spoke to me really to be like, stop, don't compare yourself. Like, God set a race before you, and He's set different races before other people. There's plans in my life that God has set before me, and there's plans in your life that God has set before you. And that's what we're called to run, the race that is set before us, like walk in the plans that God has for you. I don't want to be starting to try and run someone else's race because, I'm going to, one, trip up over them. I'm going to be feeling negative when I'm not achieving, and, so that helped with that. And then also I was reading in Hebrews. I'm reading Hebrews at the moment. In Hebrews 12, it says, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising its shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. It says, doesn't it, lay aside every weight and sin. So for me, I was just like, yeah, I need to lay aside comparison. Like, I'm just laying that aside, God. I don't want that in my life. There's no space for that. And, let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. So, we need to lay these things aside so that we can run with endurance the race that's set before us with nothing hindering us. And then it says, goes on to say, doesn't it, looking to Jesus. And that's who we want to look to help us. Because I'm not saying running these races are easy. So, looking to Jesus and the founder and perfecter of our faith. He wrote our story. He made us, but he's also bringing us to completion. Like, one day we will be like him. We'll be made like him. And then it says, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. Like, that's the Jesus we're looking to, the Jesus that endured the cross for us, that laid down his life for us, that loves us that much that he gave up his life for us so that we can be reconciled to God. So, yeah, I just want to encourage you today. Maybe you don't struggle with comparison, but I would encourage you to ask God, is there anything else that you can lay aside, that you need to lay aside to help you to run your race with endurance? And maybe it is comparison, then I would encourage you to pray about that and, hand that over to God and just lay that aside and keep your eyes firmly fixed on Jesus. I just pray for all of us today that we can keep our eyes firmly fixed on him. There is no one more deserving, no one more worthy, no one more beautiful than Jesus. I know when I've got my eyes fixed on him, nothing else, all these things don't seem to matter because I'm looking at Jesus. And so I just pray for all of us that we can do that today, keep our eyes firmly fixed on him in this time. Love you all, and see you all on Zoom soon. Bye.